Trust is pretty much at the core of every sale, and how you think about trust in your personal life, your personal relationships, and how it is built there is actually very, very similar to how it's built in a business relationship and how you present it on a sales call and then further through the sales pipeline, obviously in a closing call. So, how trust kind of relates to sales is it is really the foundation of everything. As you can see here on the right, everything else is built upon the trust that you are continuously building in your interactions with prospects. So, your questioning, your pitch, your service, and the general conversation itself, that all leads to a closed deal. That can only go well when you've got this foundation of trust at the bottom here. And the reason for this really is prospects in especially the questioning section, they'll only tell you their true pain points, their true actual objections, and their true goals even sometimes if they trust you, which allows you to then obviously handle those objections correctly, use those as leverage and use all the information you're getting from them as leverage. And obviously if you're offering a service or even a product, for them to trust it, the service you can fulfill in it, you can fulfill in the guarantee if there is one, and for the product to actually be designed and go how you say it will go. For them to believe that, they need to trust you, and that's obviously going to lead to a sale. So trust is the core of everything else in your sales call, in the sales process, is built upon that, and the desired outcome once trust is built and everything else goes well is a closed deal. So really the foundation of a conversation and what you're going to be good doing and why you're actually cold calling someone is your job is to offer a product or service to their business. Simply put, sales is just offering a product or service. And ideally this product or service helps them reach their goals or and overcome some problem they're facing. So to sell prospects like this, you really need to talk about question first their problems, question them about their goals, question them about their situation, and try keep these questions in context to what you're selling or what you're offering. And from here, you will want to create leverage with these problems, create leverage with these goals, and then really position what you offer as either helping them fix those problems, helping them reach their goals, or a mix of both. However, if the prospect obviously has massive problems in their business, there's a lot going wrong, and there's a lot they need help with, that's great for you because that means you can have more of an impact with your service or your product, and as a result, demand a higher price. So that is also a major pain point for them. If there's a major problem in their business, it's not likely they're going to want to tell a random stranger on the phone, someone who's cold calling them. So as a result, they're going to lie to you maybe. They might just kind of use a smoke screen, ignore the question. And it's kind of fair enough because why would they trust someone who's just called them? Why would they trust a person who's cold called them and asking them personal questions about their business, maybe problems they don't really want to address? That's why they're still there. But on the other side of it, that gives you a lot of leverage to create positioning with your product, with your service. And when you create that position and really frame your product or service in a way that solves these big problems, then it increases the chance of you obviously closing the deal as you're able to help them more. So from as you can see from this, that's great. If you've got trust and they've got big problems that actually they are facing in their business and they tell you about this, that puts you in a great position to then leverage these problems and then really position your product or service as solving them and helping them reach their goals. But if they don't trust you, if you're just a random guy that's cold called them and maybe you start off asking some really personal questions straight away, if you're in this situation on a cold call, as a result, they will probably lie to you. So if they lie to you about the problems they're facing, or maybe they don't mention the real problems they're facing, when you try to create leverage and you try to position your product or service as solving those problems, just as a result of that, it's going to have no emotional or logical impact to them because what you're saying has no real value because they haven't told you the real reasons. They haven't told you their real problems. They haven't told you their real goals. They haven't told you the real situation in their business. So this inaccurate information means when you go to pitching your service, when you go to creating leverage, and when you continue any other area of the cold call, you're just not going to be able to do it effectively, which leads to the sale and obviously the close not happening most of the time if there's no trust. So as you can see here, guys, really, it's really, really clear that you need trust because that is your foundation. Your trust is your foundation. And to ask the right questions, get the right answers that you can then use in your pitch, use in general conversation. And when you pitch your service specifically, you can pitch it to their custom needs. When you're doing these three things, if you're questioning, it doesn't actually get you accurate, correct information from them because they don't trust you. If this is the case, that means when you go to obviously pitch your service, the leverage and the pain points you're trying to hit on aren't real. So then emotionally, no value to them and you won't close the deal. So that's it really, the foundation of every conversation. With trust there, you get real answers that you can then use to obviously help you position your product or service as helping them reach their goals, overcoming problems they may be facing. And how do we build trust? So there's so many different ways to build trust. What I will say, this is just a quick kind of masterclass on trust and informing you about it and how it relates to sales. If you want to actually dig deeper into it and how it works, there's a lot of books on it when it comes to sales, and some of the best ones are, for example, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. That's one I've reread at least 5 times. That goes into a lot of these points, especially about tonality and language, which you can see here are going to come up later in this presentation. In the tonality and language part, I'm going to go very briefly into it to give you enough to actually you to then use on your calls tonight. I'm just going to give you enough information that you can use on your calls tonight and actually put into action. But after you've done that and you're learning from this little snippet of information I'm giving you, then go read something like Never Split the Difference. And then that's just going to really expand your knowledge about tonality, about language, and how it works. And obviously, I'm not going to go into all those little details because that's not what I've learned. That's stuff from Chris Voss directly from his book. What I'm teaching now is stuff I've learned from a combination of sales coaches, sales training videos, sales books, and obviously implementing all of this knowledge onto my cold calls, onto when I'm leading teams, and onto when I'm closing. So here, how can we build trust? Number one, being sharp. And when it comes to being sharp, it's very simple. You want to present yourself as a professional in your language, your tone, and also just your general presentation in terms of your looks. So obviously the basics, haircut, dress sharply, no need for a suit, but a good background, just sharp clothing like a white t-shirt, black t-shirt, and then a nice background that looks professional, and then obviously a good microphone, good camera. Just these little things subconsciously do build a lot of trust because you're sharp, you indicate yourself as a professional, and a lot of people watching this will know who Tate is. So a very good example of talking like a professional, especially in your tone and how you actually present yourself in your body language even as well, which doesn't play as major factor on Zoom calls, but your body language is important, is Tate with his interview with Piers Morgan. Any of them are perfect examples of this because he's always trying to basically present himself as a professional. And the reason he's actually doing this in his interviews with Piers Morgan is because the eyes on this are going to be immense. So when Tate presents himself as a sharp professional, that obviously builds trust in him. People, viewers, his fans are going to be looking at him like, this guy's a professional. This guy ain't no human trafficker. He's a professional. And as a result, this builds trust. So you can see here really in action. And obviously his language on top of this is one of a professional. So this all goes in towards building trust. And you can see Tate does this perfectly. If you look at his audience, the people that like him, the trust they have in him to buy his products, join the war and spend thousands and thousands of dollars on what he sells, the trust he's had to build there is immense. And just an example of this is him, the Piers Morgan interview. Number two, being enthusiastic. So this matters a lot more in a cold call. So on a closing call, you can be a bit more laid back. You can be a bit more chill. You can have the same energy and same presentation sort of tone that I have now. But in a cold call, when you are, especially the first minute, you want to be enthusiastic. You want to add life and you want to add energy into call. The reason for this is just like how a short form video has to really disrupt a user from scrolling. A cold call, you have to really grab their attention. You have to really grab their interest when you're phoning up because you're distracting them from the day. You're distracting them from what they're doing. So you don't want to talk like a robot because the prospect's going to lose their attention and lose their interest and either not listen to what you're saying and stay on the phone or just end the call. So simply put, just add enthusiasm and tone and energy into what you're saying, add it into the conversation, and it's just going to build that extra trust because they're actually more engaged with what you're saying. And if they're more engaged and they're listening to what you're saying, when you do mention these things that create leverage, hit on pain points, that's going to actually obviously resonate with them, connect with them emotionally, and as a result, you're going to get what you want out of the call, which is either booking a meeting or closing the deal. So you don't want to come off too salesy or happy-go-lucky. That's very bad. But just keep it professional, keep it sharp, but add tone and energy so you don't sound like a fucking monotone robot. You want to come off as a human, just someone else on the other end of the line who's got their own tonality about them, their own enthusiasm, their own energy that really kind of just brightens up a deal, to be honest. It just really adds that energy into a deal, which is sometimes all you need to actually get it over the line. And number three, this is a major one. So being an expert in your field and also their field. So if you're selling a product or service that has specific niches that you're targeting, just understanding that ideal customer profile to an absolute T and just understanding everything about their business, the common problems in their industry, the common pain points, the common situation most are facing with the market right now. Having in-depth knowledge on this allows you to actually understand in detail the prospects, and as a result, it's going to give you ammo for your questioning. So when you're asking questioning, you can actually ask the questions about these common problems that come up with most of your calls, and it really allows you to ask the questions you want to ask and then get the information you want, which then could all lead to trust being built. And number two, the major point that actually builds trust is just having in-depth knowledge in your own field. So for a prospect to actually believe in your product or service, they need to understand it to a T. They need to understand it crystal clear. And for them to do this, you need to. So you need to understand it perfectly. And then as a result, you need to understand how to explain it and how to actually get it across to them of what it does, but also what it does for them specifically, the benefits has for their business. And also on top of that, like having them understand it in their own language. Maybe they're not a SEO guy, maybe they're not a tech guy. So explain your prospect and be such a knowledgeable person in what you sell that you can really position whatever you're selling in a way that suits them. So maybe you see two types of normal prospects. So you see one more logical type of prospect and one more technical type of prospect. So when you really can actually go, okay, this guy on the phone with me, he's more of a logical guy. This side of my pitch, this sort of route I can go down will work better with him. And because you're an expert in your field, you can explain it in a way and you can switch and customize your pitch mid call to actually allow him to understand it. And you use the actual words and the messaging and the language that's going to resonate with him and that he will understand. So then he can build trust in your product. Because if he doesn't have any understanding in your product, then he's obviously not going to trust it. So for him to get that understanding, you need to be an expert in the product so you can explain it to him correctly. And obviously being an expert in their field as well, on top, that allows you to ask the right questions and just have more of an understanding of them going into the conversation, which tips really the percentage of you booking a meeting in your favor. Is you could just got more ammo, essentially more ammo for asking questions, more ammo for your pitch, and just lead you as a more informed person on the call compared to them. So the last one and the most important, and Chris Voss talks a lot about this in the early part of his book, Never Split the Difference. And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, he goes into a lot more detail. So being caring just automatically builds trust. If someone cares for you, especially a salesman, and they actually show that correctly, as a result, the prospects can be like, oh, this guy isn't just a salesman trying to take my money. He's not a sleazy snake oil salesman. This guy's offering a product or service that actually fixes my problems and helps me reach my goals. Obviously, they're not going to say this out loud and they're not going to have this exact thought in their head, but they'll have something along the lines of this. And the way you sort of do this, very, very, very simply put, is you just present a caring tone when you're talking and just repeat back what they're saying to them to show you're actively listening. So active listening is what Chris Voss talks about a lot. Go and read that book because it will explain it way more than these two tiny paragraphs here have. But essentially put on the base level and on the surface, repeating back to them what they say shows you're actively listening. So when they say something, maybe they just say, yeah, we tried an SEO agency early this year and they didn't actually work too well because of this, this and that. If you then repeat back to them what they've just said in their own language, it just shows to them you're actively listening and you care. And especially when you say it in a caring, empathetic tone. So if I was doing that and someone just said to me, they tried SEO before in Q1, but it didn't work just due to it being a bad SEO company, I'd be like, yeah, so you tried SEO, it was earlier this year, Q1, but bad SEO company, so you didn't really get any further with that. What would you say the main reasons are for it not working, particularly with that partnership? So when I say that, I'm just saying it in a really like sort of curious, inquisitive, but also caring and empathetic tone, because I know, well, I don't know how that feels, but I know how it feels to be fucked over by an agency, by a service provider. And obviously we don't want to be like that. That's a major risk for them and something they faced in the past. So it's a major point we have to get across. So to get across that and allow them to put trust in us when in the past their trust has been destroyed by another agency, you really have to just present a very caring tone, repeat back what they say, and just show you're attentive and listening to them. When someone's just listening to you and being empathetic with what you're saying, that automatically just builds trust. So when it comes to caring, just the main thing is active listening, repeating back to them what you're saying, showing you have an understanding through things like summaries where you're just in their own words explaining back what they said to show you're actively listening and you care. And then tonality foundations. Tonality is a major part. So in terms of tonality, it shows enthusiasm, it shows energy, it can show you're being caring, it can show you're inquisitive, it can show you're making a statement. And as a result of this, this is a very, very baseline sort of surface understanding of tonality. So you can use this on your calls tomorrow because I'm presenting in such a simple way. Just use this and apply it to your calls straight away and your script. So when you're asking a question, simply raise your tone at the end. So this allows you to sound really curious and inquisitive. If you sound curious and inquisitive and you're asking a prospect about the problems in their business, maybe the goals they're facing, this will build trust because it shows you actually care. So it's building that care. So for example, if you're like, so have you actually tried marketing in terms of social organic media marketing in the past? Have you tried that, or is that still something you need to go down and try? And when I say that, it's very simple there. Like I'm just asking a simple question, but I'm saying it in a way that I sound very curious. I raise the tone at the end, so it leaves it as sort of like an open statement, and it just allows them to answer however they want and just feel comfortable with it as well. And then when making a statement, so for example, when you're pitching to them, when you want to book in a meeting on a cold call, you want to lower your tone. So, for example, if I was asking a question, even though it's still a question, you can still use this in questions. So you can use this with a gatekeeper a lot. Can you pass me through to John, please? So when you're making a statement to a cold caller, obviously you want to sound very authoritative, and you want to get a no at the end. You don't want to get any answer. You just want to basically make a statement, but in the form of a question. So you're like, "Can I speak to John, please?" So you can hear, as I said, that I've lowered the tone at the end of my sentence, and this just kind of it just indicates what I'm saying is more of a statement. And obviously, in statements, you want to use this as well. So when you're saying making a statement about, I'll keep it very simple here with a percentage increase. So this has led to 70% increase in conversion rate for our client John's website. So you should be like, yeah, so this actually led to a 70% conversion rate on our client John's website. So just how I say that when I lower my tone, it's a lot more impactful than if I was to say it like this. So yeah, there was a 70% increase on our client John's website. So when I just increase my tone at the end, it doesn't sound as hard hitting, and it also just doesn't sound as important. So by lowering your tone at the end, it just adds importancy, and to them, it makes them actually listen to what you're saying more. So you want to use this on impact words and stuff you really actually want them to take note of. And you don't want to sound like a fucking up and down happy go lucky cunt. So when you are switching between these kind of connecting words and these tones, you will just use connecting words. So maybe you're talking really high pitch, you ask not high pitch, high tone, and you're asking a question, just go like because, however, and kind of stretch it out a bit. And this just allows you to go from that high tone to the low tone at the end. And when a prospect is talking to someone with great tonality, they actually feel engaged, they feel the call has energy, and they feel the enthusiasm, the life in the call, which obviously allows them to be more active and more interested in the conversation, which leads to a more productive conversation. And if it's a productive conversation and you're actually getting somewhere with it, that normally means that there's a high chance of you closing if it is a right fit. And with shit tonality, you're just going to sound like a robot. You're going to sound very, very boring. You're going to sound like this. They're not going to be engaged with you. They're not going to be listening to what you're saying. And as a result, they're not going to actually pay attention to whatever you're saying. So when you do say things, it's not going to emotionally connect with them. And the call's probably not going to go anywhere because there's no energy and there's no life into the call. It's just fucking boring. So that's why you want to talk with good tonality and don't sound like a fucking robot, because the call isn't going to go anywhere. There's no energy and there's no life in the call. And sometimes you can literally close a call with your energy and tonality. A prospect can like how you're presenting and how the energy and the life you bring to a call so much that that builds enough trust for them to believe in your product or service and believe in you, that they're going to go with it. So that's a very, very brief overview of the tonality foundations there. Again, a lot of Jordan Belfort's stuff is great with tonality, and also the stuff in Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference. Like Chris Voss's book, honestly, if you haven't read that, reread it 5 times at least. It's like the Bible of sales. So a lot of the things I'm talking about here are surface level bits about trust and just the really foundational stuff that you can actually take action on and use tomorrow on your sales calls. But then as you're doing calls over the next few weeks, you want to be reading his book and actually learning and understanding these concepts of the call, but understanding them in a lot more detail. So to recap all of this, trust, as I mentioned earlier, is really the foundation of every sale. There's lots of different ways to build it and also destroy it. And you can really just build it through your energy and language. That's the most important and the major way that good salesmen build trust and have more sales. So as you can see here, Jesus. Why have I included a fucking picture of Jesus? Because Christians, they trust Jesus more than anyone. They trust God and they trust that religion more than anything. And for people to adopt the Christian belief, that's a sale. Jesus was a messenger on earth to sell the Christian religion. And obviously, the major point and the foundation of so many people adopting Christianity is just the trust Jesus built. He was a very caring, he was a very empathetic person. He helped people. And as a result of this, people just trusted him. They listened to what he said. And as a result of listening to what he said, he got his desired outcome and they also got theirs. They listened to what he said. They wanted happiness. They want peace in their life. They want to follow a purpose. He's providing that with Christianity. And he's also getting what he wants out of it. He's getting more people to join the religion. So everyone's getting what they want out of this. The salesman, aka Jesus, is getting more people to buy his product or service, aka Christianity. They're getting a benefit. They're being happy. They've got a belief. They've got something to actually live for. And then the way he sells it is just trust, caring for people, being empathetic, and that allows people to trust in him and convert to Christianity. So that's it used there in not a business sense, in a religious sense. So you can kind of see and imagine how that relates to a business partnership, a cold call, and a closing call. You've just got to build that trust. And once you build the trust, you can get what you want, which is obviously a sale for them to use your product or service and buy it. And then they can get what they want. They can solve their problems. They can get to where they want to be with their business. They can get out their current situation. Whatever they want, they can get. And that's a successful deal where the prospect, they feel like they fixed a problem in their business, they've reached a certain goal as a result of this partnership. You've obviously got your commission as a salesman, the business has got its revenue, and then the main key player, the main factor for that sale is the trust you built in the sales process that leads to it. So sales and trust, it really goes hand in hand. And if you want to make a sale, you need trust to be built, as it is the foundation and the core of everything.